The night I met Ivy, I was getting desperate. I was just about to give up my walk through the Santa Anas. The wind was warm like bathwater, but stung my bare legs with grit, when I saw Little Joy up ahead. It was on the side of Sunset that had been spared by the windstorm, and it still had electricity, and the bar was a glowing oasis in the inky night. The tinkle of glasses and murmur of happy voices grew louder the closer I got. A neon arrow pointed cheerily to the entrance. Cocktails. I paused at the door. I'd never ventured alone into a bar by myself before that night. I was used to roaming with a pack of girls. I didn't even like eating in the dining hall alone. But that night, something, my fear of failing here, my boredom, my loneliness, the crazy winds maybe, something was urging me to enter. I handed over my Pennsylvania ID to the bouncer, who barely glanced at it, and stepped inside. The bar smelled like yesterday's cigarettes, and the floor stuck gummily to my sneakers. There were a couple pool tables in the back, enshrouded in smoke. The Strokes, The Modern Age, blasted from the jukebox, and a quick visit to the bathroom to fix my windblown hair revealed stalls full of chatty girls sharing cocaine and parliaments. It reminded me of a dive back home, and I felt instantly comfortable. I ordered a can of Tecate, an alien beer to me but what everyone else was having, and settled at a bar stool to try and meld into my surroundings. It didn't work. I felt her eyes on me right away. I turned to see a girl my age staring at me, sunglasses still perched atop her head even though the sun had set hours ago. She was smiling at me like she knew me already, and she had the kind of frizzy, curly hair that I associated with nerdy efficiency, which made me want to trust her. She looked like someone I'd know back home, someone from school. So when she gave me a little wave, I waved back automatically. She was sitting at a table with a couple other girls, and she was wearing a gold racerback tank that shone like an aura off her skin and a pair of matching short shorts. It was just basic gym wear at first glance, but something about that matching set looked special to me. It was vaguely vintage, something that would be at home on both a 1970s Olympian and a 1970s porn star, but still seemed new and fresh. It stuck out in the grungy bar that was marked over with tattoos and shredded rocker tees and the whale tails of thongs cresting over the asses of low-rise jeans. I noticed the other girls sitting with her were wearing the same clean, classic athleisure wear, brandless, like it belonged on everyone. Where did they even find this stuff? There had been nothing like it at the Galleria. When the curly-haired one turned her wave into a come hither, I hopped off my stool and headed over. I was intrigued by these special girls. What did they want with me? "Hi, I'm Ivy," she said, holding out a card. It looked like a business card, but it wasn't made of quality cardstock. It was just a slip of printer paper, curling at the edges and cut into an uneven rectangle by someone in a hurry. Xeroxed on the front of it was a picture of a girl in a bikini and a pair of striped athletic socks. She was high-kicking over a block of text. American Apparel, it read. That name, it sounded so familiar, sort of nebulous in its generalness, almost generic sounding. Had I heard it somewhere before, or just thought I had? I took the card from her hand and scanned the rest. A progressive, provocative retailer and manufacturer of knit t-shirts, not dominated by logos or politically correct tribalism. Sweatshop free. Great travel opportunities. I flipped the card over. "Come join our team," it said. Everything began to swim with meaning. A retailer, a team, an opportunity, a job. I looked at Ivy, my heart pounding in my ears. This girl was my savior in hot shorts. How did she know this was just what I needed? It was pure serendipity, and I couldn't believe how fate had just handed over. "I was thinking you could model for us," Ivy said. Modeling? I snapped back into reality and felt all my excitement deflate like an old balloon. I had watched 3 seasons of Top Model by that winter of 2005. Tyra teasing modeling careers on the end of the fishing line, yanking them away if the girls had the wrong teeth, or the wrong body, or the wrong personality. I was too smart to fall into that sexist trap after 4 years at Bryn Mawr. And I was a brain, not a beauty, couldn't she tell? I needed an actual job that would give me a paycheck every week, health insurance, a 401k. I tried to explain. "I'm not a model. I searched for the right word. A feminist." Ivy laughed. "You can be both, you know," she said, gesturing to the other girls at the table. They were all staring at me now, and I shifted self-consciously in my Converse. This isn't just a modeling job, Ivy assured me. We do it all. You want to hear about it? I sat down at their table. I had nothing to lose. Ivy bought me and the other girls another round of Tecates and started explaining. American Apparel had started off simply, as a t-shirt company, selling wholesale to anyone who might need a supply of blank tees for their band or business. But these weren't just any typical t-shirts. They were slim-cut, European style. They clung sexily to your body, a stylish departure from the square tees of the 1990s that turned your torso as boxy as a Lego. The company couldn't make them fast enough. Boxes of the tees were flying out of the factory as quick as they could be manufactured, and now the brand was expanding into retail. The new brick-and-mortar American Apparel stores were starting to race across the country faster than California wildfire. The company was so successful, growing at such breakneck speed, it was having trouble keeping up with itself. We have to wear lots of hats here, Ivy said. She told me the same girls managing and working in the retail shops were also the same girls back in the headquarters designing the newest styles. And they were also the ones hiring all the new employees and scouting for new locations in cities where the company would be sure to thrive. And so it only made sense that they were also the campaign girls, the models, appearing in all the ads. We're more like spokesmodels, Ivy said, clarifying. We're the face of the company because we're the ones running it. When she put it like that, it didn't sound too bad. I could get down with being a spokesmodel, as long as it came with a regular paycheck. This whole egalitarian system was the vision of the company's founder, a man with a mystical-sounding name. Dove, Ivy said. Like the bird, maybe? He had some crazy ideas, Ivy said, her pretty face twisting with a smile. But he was committed to a better life for all of his employees, while also committed to turning a profit. Everything produced in the factory was made by fair-wage workers, garments you could feel good about wearing and selling. Not like that Forever 21 fast fashion garbage made in sweatshops overseas, Ivy said, her nose wrinkling in disgust. He knows you don't have to stand on people's necks to make a profit. I felt a wave of guilt run through me. I was one of the masses mindlessly buying it. Of course the cheap stuff came at a great cost. I just wasn't the one paying it. American Apparel is different from all the rest because our boss isn't trying to cheat anyone, she said. The girls at the table nodded in agreement. He's still a businessman, of course. Still a capitalist, just doing it ethically. Ethical capitalism? Was there such a thing? Ivy clocked the look on my face. Come see for yourself, she said. She invited me to meet her at the factory the next morning, pointing an unpolished fingernail at the address listed on the bottom of the card. 747 Warehouse Street. I'll give you the tour, she said, and then you can decide if it's right for you. But as soon as I saw you, I knew. You're one of us. She wrapped her arm around my shoulder and pulled me into her, smelling like Coppertone and jasmine. It was the first hug I'd gotten since I'd arrived in the city 3 months ago, and I needed it. The way Ivy was looking at me told me that I'd finally made a friend here. On the walk home that night, I started to feel all my good old confidence coming back. A perfectly progressive job had fallen right into my lap when I needed it most. What had I been so worried about? I only needed to rely on myself, and I would always be okay. That was the women's college way, after all. I was going to make it here in LA. You're one of us, Ivy had said. For the first time since I arrived in this new city, I wasn't feeling lonely anymore. I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. I was in. 2. The factory. The factory sat back from Alameda Street, hidden from the road by a chain-link fence woven with orange bougainvillea. I drove right past the entrance. The unassuming opening in the hedge was easy to overlook, and I had to turn back around to find it. I double-checked my MapQuest printout and slipped the card Ivy gave me back into my wallet. This was the place. Once I saw it for the first time, I'd never miss it again. The official headquarters and manufacturing center for American Apparel was a hulking warehouse painted millennial pink, and it poked out of the craggy wedge of no man's land between the Fashion District and Skid Row like a determined flower. Emblazoned across the top was a huge banner that read, "American Apparel is an industrial revolution." On the east side of the building, the message echoed in Spanish, "American Apparel es una compañía rebelde." Just reading it made my heart beat faster. I knew my future, the exciting one I was always meant to have, waited for me inside. I pressed hard on the gas pedal and zoomed through the unpaved lot, cranking up my window when a rising cloud of red dust threatened to infiltrate my car and grunge up the outfit I had agonized over all morning. What to wear to the factory? The name, so Warholian, loaded with instant mythos. It would have to be something simple, but special, like the classic Cali style that Ivy and the girls were wearing at the bar. I rummaged through every piece of clothing I owned, trying to find something that passed, but every item had a screen print, a lace applique, a bedazzlement somewhere, ruining everything. In the end, I settled on a black cami I usually wore to sleep and paired it with maroon surf shorts that were so tight you could see my middle name. They do. If I looked in the mirror and squinted, I might have passed for an American Apparel girl. But there was still something so ordinary about my look. Something was missing. I immediately thought of the hat. It was a classic black felt floppy with a little bit of white contrast stitching along the band. It had been my mom's in the 1960s, and now it was mine, a little connection between me and her all the way out here. As the youngest, I got all the hand-me-downs. My mother had a practicality so baked in, she had even passed down her own initials to me, so nothing with a monogram would go to waste. A bunch of old-fashioned jewelry and embroidered cloth handkerchiefs that I never had much use for. But the hat was cool, just my style. I'd worn it on the plane so the crown wouldn't get crushed in my suitcase, and it made the journey intact. But I hadn't had it on much since I arrived. It was a statement piece, and now it had found its role. It was obviously the perfect thing to wear to the factory. Vaguely vintage, but utilitarian in the LA sunshine. I was glad I had been smart enough to bring it along in the move. I was ready now. Everything was just right, or as right as I could make it, as I weaved a path through the haphazardly parked array of dented pickups and minivans on my way to the front doors of the factory. The outdoor lobby was an old concrete weighing station with 2 giant elevators and a card table manned by a yawning security guard, unimpressed by my hat. "I'm here to see Ivy," I told him. "Take it to the top," he said, 7th floor. I crowded in and peeked under my brim to check out the eclectic mix of garment workers and sleepy hipsters who filled the elevator, and I did my best to be cool and blend in. But inside, I was fizzing with nerves. I had to leave this factory with a job offer. This was my shot, one last hurdle to clear before I could start living a real life in LA. My heartbeat was pounding in my ears as I stepped off the elevator into a sterile white hallway bookended by a set of orange doors. I checked my watch. I was right on time, but where was Ivy? I tried to distract myself by examining a series of Polaroid snapshots, blown up and pasted on the wall. In them, a blonde girl in red sweatpants and a triangle bikini top prowled a playground at night. In the first one, she's hanging down from the monkey bars, peeking back at the photographer. In the next, she's mid-spin on the merry-go-round, her hair caught in her mouth. In another, she's straddling a swing with an impish smile on her face, nose scrunched up defiantly. I recognized the look right away. The smile of a teenage girl up to no good. I could practically hear the lukewarm Zima bottles clanking in her backpack, the flick of the lighter igniting a swiped Capri from Mom's purse. I knew this girl because I was this girl, or at least I had been recently. There was something so honest about the shots. Just a real-life girl going about the business of girlhood, not really modeling. She didn't even have any makeup on. It was so simple, but it worked. I couldn't stop looking at her. "That's Natalie," a voice said. "She's great, right? You'll find her roaming around here." I turned to see Ivy, who'd materialized by my side in a pair of pirate boots and leggings, her curly hair in a top knot stabbed through with a bic. "Great hat. I love," she said. I beamed as she leaned in for a hug. I was already off to a great start. The elevator door opened again and unleashed another handful of employees ready to start their workday, all in head-to-toe American apparel. A girl in Keds breezed by us in a cropped sweatshirt and a tennis skirt. I couldn't tell if she was channeling the 1950s or a 1980s revival. All the looks were timelessly chic, their fashion inspirations hard to pin down. "Let's start our tour with retail operations, the headquarters for the brand," Ivy said. swinging the orange door open into a clean white room with long conference tables and tall potted plants nodding towards the windows. A coffee maker gurgled in a corner as a sea of beautiful employees opened laptops and unwound chargers, the room looking more like a Hollywood movie set than anything resembling the crummy office purgatory of Urban Outfitters. What I noticed right away was that the whole operation appeared to be the veritable melting pot that my public high school had always promised America to be. Racial and cultural diversity fueled the creative nucleus of this brand. There were no old white guys in button-downs, not a single boomer to be found. No one looked to be above the age of 25. And I quickly clocked that the majority of the employees were young women. Young women squinting at computer screens, dispensing orders, consulting with one another, rushing through with armfuls of swimwear, tags fluttering. Occasionally, a few interloping guys would breeze through, wearing the same basic t-shirt in different colorways, practically interchangeable with each other. But it was obvious. Women ruled here. Ivy gestured across the room, and the retail department began to transform before my eyes. I realized I was looking at the corporate version of Bryn Mawr, a powerful woman behind every big desk. They orbited around the desk of one woman in particular, whose authority seemed to be radiating from the giant bun on top of her head. "No, no, no," she screamed into her phone. "New York needs 3,000 black bodysuits yesterday. Start making them tomorrow so we can start selling them by Friday afternoon." Ivy looked at me and smiled, sensing my excitement. That's Roz. Nothing gets made without her approval. She's a total genius. Ivy and I hooked arms and continued our tour down to the 4th floor, one of the 2 floors devoted entirely to production, as she explained the mechanics of American Apparel's vertically integrated manufacturing system. Product development, design, marketing, and manufacturing all were housed under the factory's singular roof. That way, if a bikini had the wrong fit or fabrication, or wasn't quite the right shade of cerulean, or if something's a super seller, like Roz's black bodysuits, Ivy mentioned, production counts could be tailored accordingly, and the new products would be sold in stores immediately, while your competitors twiddled their thumbs, waiting months for a response from a foreign sweatshop on the other side of the world. It makes sense, and it makes a profit, Ivy said. It was truly brilliant. Why didn't every factory operate like this, instead of outsourcing jobs people already needed here in the States? We stepped onto the 4th floor, a bright open space filled with windows and light, humming with sewing machines. Dozens of garment workers worked side by side in smooth choreography to create quivering piles of Kelly green men's underwear, which were quickly stacked up at the end of the assembly line. A new pair came into the world every 90 seconds. I looked around and noticed sign-up sheets on the bulletin boards for free English lessons and sign-out sheets for the company masseuse, on call to relieve any kinked necks or numb fingers that might flare up. I find out that at the end of each shift, tranquil spa music and a yoga routine in Spanish would warble down from the speakers, a cool-down lap for the body and soul. This was clearly no sweatshop. I stared at the pile of green briefs, growing larger by the minute, and a thought occurred to me. How would wearing this fair-wage underwear affect the people who wore it? Clothes harbor feelings, I knew from experience. I have dresses I wear when I want to feel worldly or sexy. A black turtleneck gives me the confidence of an eccentric genius. The right kind of leather moto jacket makes me invincible enough to tell a street harasser to fuck himself. And clothing retains memories. That was definitely true, too. I had sweaters I retired from my wardrobe because I'd been dumped in them. Hoodies I donated because I had to send a pet over the Rainbow Bridge while wearing them. Some kind of emotional osmosis happens with clothes and the people who wear them. So it stands to reason that garments ethically manufactured are a wellspring of good vibes. You feel good wearing them,